Choose your hero, grab that gear, and let's take a look at Dungeons & Dragons the Fantasy Adventure board game. Welcome to another video, everyone. I hope you're all doing really well, and today we are taking a look at one of the oldest board games I still own. Dungeons & Dragons the Fantasy Adventure board game by Parker Games. Now, as you can tell, this box has seen much better days. I have owned this since I was about 12 years old. I remember getting this as a gift from my dad. From Toys R Us, actually. It was like a last-minute birthday gift, and it just looked really interesting. I didn't know what Dungeons & Dragons was. I think my dad knew about it and may have dabbled in it in his younger days. I'm not too sure, but we got this, we took it home, and we have played the living heck out of it. As you can see, it's a mess. But anyway, let's take a look at the back of the box. Very early 90s or maybe late 80s artwork. It did come out in the 90s, but you get the aesthetic anyway. It's a dungeon crawler board game, 2 to 5 players, with one player taking on the role of the dungeon master, the person who controls the enemies, the narrative, the missions, the rewards, and the players are set against the dungeon master to hopefully become the saviour of this cool little world. So let's have a quick read anyway. The Conquest. The land of Rallian is in the grip of the dark forces of the dungeon master, who causes havoc everywhere. 4 heroes have banded together to search out this evil and stop it once and for all. The quest begins. Right, I won't read the rest of it. We get the gist. It's a co-op game. Let's dive into the innards of this absolute beauty. So, first off, we have 2 books. We have the Dungeon Master's Guide. This is all of the information on the rules of the game, how the Dungeon Master plays and narrates the adventure as well, with a nice little reference of the miniatures that you get in the game, which we will take a look at very soon. So we'll put that to that side. This is the Player's Guide. Now, this has all of the information if you are actually playing one of the adventurers. There are the 4 heroes there. We've got Regdar the Fighter, Lida the Rogue, Jozan the Cleric, Miley the Wizard, and they have starting equipment. And as you level up, as you can see there, you get better starting equipment if you do fall in the dungeon. It's not actually game over if you do fall in the dungeon. You just lose the equipment you currently have, and you start with the base equipment of your level. So that's those. Right, next, so these are the character cards or character sheets, and there is one for each of the heroes, and each hero has their own health tracker, how much health they can take before they fall, how many squares of movement they can take each turn whilst navigating the dungeons. This is their defense class, so when an enemy swings and deals damage, you take that number off the damage and then reduce life points. And this is how many items they can keep in their knapsack on top of their equipment as well. And then each character does have a special ability. So Lida, for instance, she can disable and pick up disabled traps. Once she collects 3 of them, she can trade those in for health. Next we have Regdar. This is the box standard hard-hitting fighter, way more health than any of the other characters. Slower movement because he's wearing more armour, but he does get bonuses. His special ability is bonuses to his attack roll, meaning he can deal more damage. So Regdar, whoever plays Regdar, you want to be up front, sponging those hits and swinging. Now, Miley can cast devastating spells, damaging spells, in fact. Movement's a little bit better than the fighter, but her armour class, her defence, is tied to the amount of magic points she has. So the more spells you use, the physically weaker she becomes at absorbing damage. So you've kind of got to manipulate your actions and really micromanage things there. So she's a really interesting character to play. Probably the most difficult character to play. Finally, Jozan. He's somewhat like Regdar. He's a bit of a heavy swinger. He has decent weapons, but he is the party healer, so he can revive fallen allies. And even his special ability, one of his special abilities, is called Heal. So he can lay his hands on people effectively in the D&D world and heal health points. He can also turn undead, so he gets to use a special dice in this game, which I'll show you, which allows him to effectively scare away undead monsters like skeletons and things. So that's cool. So those are the 4 character cards. Next, we'll go on to the game boards. So these, I think there's 5 of them. These are double-sided, and depending on which mission the players are on, the Dungeon Master will set up these according to his reference in the Dungeon Master Guide. And because they are double-sided, there's a lot of replayability, and you can even make your own your own missions. There's a spot in the Dungeon Master Guide to create your own adventures and things, and it is really, really cool. I've played through this fully a few times. To be honest, we have started it and never finished it more times than we have played through it, but it's a really, really good time. It's a nice little narrative as well, and they are very, very colourful boards. Right, look at all of this. Where do we start? Let's go for the cards, if I can get these out. So, you get an absolute wad of cards. Now, these represent enemy cards, equipment, spells, treasure that you'll find. I think the top cards, if I'm correct, are what are called initiative cards. So, let me turn them over. So, before every combat encounter, these are faced downwards, shuffled by, if I can shuffle them, shuffled by the Dungeon Master, and then dealt out to every player, including the Dungeon Master. They are all then revealed at the same time, and the order that people get to take their turn is decided by the initiative order. So 1 goes first, obviously, through to 5. So you've got to be tactile with your turns as well. The next cards we've got, let me just grab these yellow ones, will be, character reference cards. These give a little bit of information on the characters and also help you with the special abilities. For instance, with Lyda, she has some special dice for searching for traps and disabling traps, so the information's on there. Same with Miley, explaining how she gets weaker the more spell she uses. And then Jozan, he has the turn undead die as well to scare away zombies and stuff. Right, next, let's take a look at, if I can grab this absolute mountain of cards. These will be the weapon accessory equipment cards, and they're all numbered or starred. These starred cards are legendary items which you will find as the narrative progresses, and then the more you level up, the more powerful weapons you get to add to your treasure deck as you play the missions. So for instance, if you're level 2 characters doing a level 2 mission, you would shuffle these level 2s in with the level 1 cards, and when you find a treasure chest in the dungeon, you just draw a card from the top of the deck and you get to keep the item or use it. Green ones are potions, blue are spells, yellow are artifacts, and they'll have some really cool abilities. Like, let me show you this artifact here. Yonderler's Fortune. When opening a chest, draw 4 cards, so instead of 1, and choose 2 to keep them. Booby traps cause no harm, so some items, the purple ones, which I'll get to, are booby traps and they can damage you. Then you roll the dice. If you roll a star, discard the ring. If you don't roll a star, you get to keep it and try to use it again. And those are booby traps there. So yeah, you get there's a nice amount of items there. Now these absolute bad boys. Now these are the enemies. Now the most powerful in the game is the Lich Lord. The dice won't make sense at the minute, but I'll explain how they work. And again, you get a ton of enemies. You've got trolls, you've got wights, carrion crawlers, which are disgusting, wraiths, like the Lord of the Rings ring wraiths, they're pretty hard to kill, ogres, oozers, which like to eat your weapons if they grab you, bugbears, which are like giant goblins, gnolls, hyena men who laugh and cackle and swing their morning stars and axes at your face, skeletons, which Jozan's really good at turning undead and scaring away, and the box standard goblins, who are the weakest enemies, but if they swamp you, they're still quite tough, to be honest. Right, let's take a look at the dice. So, as you can see, this game uses specialty dice, multicoloured dice. The weakest of the dice are the yellows, then it goes orange. These 2 dice are probably what you'll be rolling for your starting weapons and low-level weaponry. Once you get higher equipment, that yellow normally gets substituted out for a second orange, so you can deal more damage. As you can see, each sword equates to 1 point of damage on an enemy. And then red, this is more of the risk-reward dice. So this has got heavy hitting swings on it, like the 3 there, but there is a 1 in 6 chance you are going to roll a blank, which is you've got to be careful with. And the purple is just the standard hardest hitting dice, minimum of 2, max of 3, no misses. That's the dice you want to be swinging in the late game. Now, these are the specialty dice. I'll grab all of these and show you. So the basic specialty dice is the star die, as we saw with one of the cards. Certain cards will say, roll the dice, if you roll a star, discard the item, if you roll a blank, keep it. Likewise, there are certain items that allow the magic users to recover spell points, so if you roll a star, recover a spell point. If not, doesn't matter, you get a chance at doing it anyway. Next is the search for traps die. So you roll this dice when you go into a room. If you are playing as Lyda, the trap master, if you roll an eye symbol, you reveal 1 trap in the room so you know where it is, so you don't accidentally step on it to spring it. If you roll this, now this blank symbol means you don't find a trap, but it doesn't mean there aren't any traps in the room. The Dungeon Master will explain this. Now, here's the special symbol. If you roll this symbol, that means you've got to stop searching for traps in this room. And again, that doesn't tell you if there are any in the room in the first place, so you've got to be careful. With the trap die, you have the disable trap die. So you can roll this. If you roll that symbol there, you disable the trap and you can collect it and trade 3 in to heal some health. If you roll this, you spring the trap and you deal the damage of what the trap is. If it's a pitfall trap, you fall down a hole and deal damage. If it's a poison dart trap, you get poisoned, that kind of stuff. And this one is the turn undead die. So this is for Jozan the cleric. You roll this dice, and depending on the enemy, let's say a skeleton, you need to roll at least 1 skull symbol because they're quite weak and easy to scare away. Then you turn him undead. If you do this, you can scare 2 skeletons, or certain higher level enemies like the Wraith or the Lich may require 2 or even 3 skulls just to scare away for 1 turn. If you roll this, it just fails. So that's the die. Right, that's the dice. Let's take a look at all of this stuff now. Ignore these empty baggies. We don't need those. Now, these are just tokens for doorways. You place those face the other way around to show that the door is closed. Every room you explore in the dungeon, so for instance in this one, you place the door exit and then you step on the exit, and then you, on your turn, you can say, right, I'm opening the door, and then the Dungeon Master will plan the next room, placing things down like these columns or even trees, which I can show you in a second. So that's those tokens. More similar tokens, we've got treasure chests. These will get placed on the board during setup. These are trap disarm tokens, so if you do manage to disarm a trap, it's placed on the tile, so you know that you can maybe come and pick it up later on. And then we've got trees and things and that kind of stuff. Now, look at these. You get an absolute ton of figures, which is really cool for this game. The purple ones are the characters, so you have one for everyone. So that's Jozan with his slightly wonky sword. We have Lidda, the halfling rogue, who's a trapmaster with a crossbow. We have Jozan, the cleric with the shield and the big mace, ready to pummel some skeletons. And we have Miley with her magical orb and staff. She's an elf wizard. They're pretty cool. Right, enemies. Let's take a look. I'll see if I can grab them in order of weakness to toughness. So this is a little goblin. Yep, and they are numbered as well, so when you deal damage to certain ones, the Dungeon Master can keep track of who you've hit, so that would be goblin number 6. Next up, we would have skeletons. So that's those. Again, numbered. I think you get 6 skeletons as well. After the skeletons, it will go bugbear. So we've got a bugbear there. Big goblin type creature with a giant shield and a mace. He's a big lad. Next, we've got the gnolls. Now, gnolls are angry, laughing hyena men. They can actually swing in melee combat or throw axes through the dungeon as well, so they're quite dangerous, especially when they team up on you. So they're a bit of a pain. Next, we've got the ogre. Big brute, kind of like the bugbear. Imagine the bugbear, but just way tougher. These guys, they're quite tough on their own for low levels, but once you get better equipment, you can kind of take them down. Next, we've got the trolls. Now, these lads, these regenerate health every turn, so you've got to be quite tactile and gang up on them, or they'll just heal the damage that you deal to them. So that's the troll. Next is the disgusting carrion crawlers. As you can probably guess with the name carrion, they like to eat dead things, and they're awful, and they can poison you and slow you down, and yeah, they're disgusting. That's the carrion crawler. Next we have the wraiths. So these are quite hard to hit. You need to sometimes use special items to even hit them, because they are ghostly and spectral and all that kind of cool stuff. So that's that, and I think the last one would be the lich. The lich. So there's 2 different ones, sorry. So we've got a normal lich. There we go. The lighting's pretty terrible on the white ones, I'm so sorry. So that's a lich, like a mummified magic user, and this is the big bad guy, the Lich Lord. Now, the narrative will explain who and why this nasty undead thing is causing havoc in the world, but if you ever get round to being able to play this, you can find it quite cheap on eBay, to be honest. It is an old game, so most of the time it is kind of missing a few components like figures, but you can get away with that as long as all 5 of the boards are there and you've got the rule books and the dice. You are absolutely good to go with this game. Yeah, it's awesome. God, that was loud. But anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video, guys. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate if you could maybe like, drop a subscribe on the channel if you did find this interesting. And if you want to talk about anything in regards to this game or Dungeons and Dragons, I have been a DM for around 15 years. I do try to run role-playing games when I can, but you know, adult life gets in the way and things like that. But yeah, this has been an awesome one. Thank you so much, everyone. I will see you in the next video. Have an awesome, awesome day.